if you farm the land for a few years, you could keep it. And so these Syrian and Lebanese farmers came to places like Cedar Rapids, Iowa, Ross, North Dakota, Evansville, Indiana, Toledo, Ohio, and they lived there, for generations, and their descendants are still there today. And so it was this kind of chapter of history that I didn't know anything about until we were on this trip.
Okay. So are the descendants of those initial pioneers still there? Do you know?
Yeah. In North Dakota, there aren't as many, but if you go to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, where same thing, actually their relatives came a little bit earlier. They came in the 1700s, and you'll meet people that'll be 7th or 8th generation Muslim American, and they can trace their ancestors all the way back.
Nice. Okay. Interesting.
So this was the most interesting one. What was the most surprising thing?
I think it was the amount of diversity. My biggest concern as a storyteller was, okay, we're going to see a lot of the same stuff. We're going to see the same doctors, lawyers, and engineers build a mosque and this and that. And that's a cool narrative, but we were worried that we would get that every single day. And that was complete opposite. Like, we were having trouble, like, trying to figure out what to talk about because we had so much to work with. So I think that definitely surprised me the most, was just the amount of unique and compelling stories we had every day on the trip.
Okay, got a question for you. So during this trip, did you ever encounter any objections, to your documentation by Muslims at the places that you visited?
I wouldn't say we'd had documentation. There was a lot of people a little confused and a little hesitant to be forthcoming because here we are, we come off as random strangers from out of town, and all of a sudden we want to meet Muslims and talk to them and take pictures and this and that.
Yeah, you're the feds.
So I think once in a while we got some suspicion. When we were in Minneapolis, it's a large Somali community there, and we didn't know this at the time, but a few months before there was this FBI raid where they were busting these kids that did some like undercover operation or whatever, and so they thought we were the FBI. When we pulled out a camera, we went to this place where a lot of Somalis like to go to hang out, and as soon as we pulled out a camera, everyone just, not even saying anything, just got up and walked out.
Well, that's better than them jumping on you.
What do you say?
I said that's better than them jumping on you.
Oh, no question.
They could have gone old school karate kick and come out with a crane kick, and you guys would be...
Of course, man. I don't mess with Somalis, man. I mean, they know... I mean, they're going to hijack... If they can take down a full, like, U.S. tanker, like, I mean, what am I to them?
I know. But, they probably did that with their bare hands, too.
Pretty much. But yeah, so I think there was some of that, but I don't think that was people against the idea of the project. I think that was just not understanding, and it was nothing that we were really fazed by. And once they heard what we were doing, got a sense of it, and got us, knew us better, then they felt more comfortable to open up.
Okay, so we got a caller on the someone was called in from Richmond. Before we go to him, why don't you mind? We can take that call, and then we can segue into you can talk about what you're doing now.
Sure.
Yeah, because I'm interested. I wasn't aware of the change.
Hopefully, I'm not going to drop you. All right, caller, you're on. Turn on your radio, please.
Will do. It's gone. Assalamu alaikum. How's everyone?
Walaikum salam. You said your name was?
Khalid Atala.
Oh, okay.
Khalid.
Yes, sir. I was calling. I had a question about the ones that migrated back in the 17 and 1800s out in the Midwest. Has he actually met some of the descendants that are there now, and how heavy or how, if any, is the culture that they have compared to like a first generation or second generation immigrant that's here now? And how, with respect to each other's culture, how is their culture and how their people live in their country today? I'm just kind of curious. Has it faded? Is it the same?
That's a really good question, and we did meet a lot of descendants in North Dakota, and especially in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. North Dakota, it was a little bit harder because what happened in North Dakota, a lot of the people there ended up, intermarrying or having like interracial relationships and interreligious relationships and this and that. And those are all good and dandy, but what happens is sometimes it's hard to hold on to that sense of identity. And also by default, just by looking at culture, like Syrian and Lebanese people tend to be a little more light-skinned, and so it's just very easy for them to be more accepted and, I guess, quote-unquote, blend in. And so it was harder to hold on to that identity there and also the mosque for them was more of a hangout spot, and so the importance of Islam and this and that wasn't as heavily emphasized. Now, how they preserved that in Iowa, what happened was the mosque was a hangout spot for them. They used to call it the Nadi, which in Arabic is the club, and so that was just where they went to hang out. It was just like a cultural, hangout spot. But in the 60s and 70s, when the Desis, the Arabs, the Indians and Pakistanis and the African American community came in Iowa in the 60s and 70s, there was this big engineering and tech boom there, and so all these people were coming in. When those Muslims came in, they practiced a more traditional, more principled Islam, and so when they came in, the Arabs in that community, the Syrian and Lebanese, realized, well, we're going to lose our kids unless we, emphasize Islam. So it was actually Islam that helped people emphasize their identity as much, and so the community now in Cedar Rapids is very much in tune with it, and they can trace their ancestry back, and so you'll have 6-7 generations of, practicing, proud Muslim Americans.
Well, I was always curious about that. You definitely hit that on the head for me. I appreciate that.
All right. Thanks for calling, caller.
Thank you.
All right. You're listening to the Community Radio Show on WLEE News Talk 990. So call and ask any of us a question, or our guest, Aman Ali. Dial 788-0990. That's 788-0990.
Or
788-0990.
Or call toll free 1-877-953-3990. So that was a very good question. I appreciate that, caller.
So Aman, so can you talk a little bit about the project you're working on now and how it sounds like the 30 mosques in 30 days was kind of the auspices for what you guys are working on now.
Sure. So the cool thing about this project is it's kind of taking this organic, grows year after year after year. The project actually began in 2009 when we were just visiting mosques in New York City, because we found out that there's 163 mosques within a 10-mile radius of where I live, and so it was just this very impulsive idea to visit mosques every day around New York, and someone told us to blog about it, so we did, and people were like, hey, you should blog, and more and more people were saying it, so...
Yeah, I remember when that first started. That was a great idea.
Those were like the mixtape years. and then we dropped the album. So what happened, and then it built this following, and then we decided to kick it up and go across the country. Well, we had an opportunity to either do a cross-country road trip, and even the State Department encouraged us to do a global one. They're like, how we can help facilitate that.
Right.
But we were afraid as creative people that this would become a yearly gimmick where every year we're just going somewhere.
Right.
And really, this trip is about telling stories, and that's our mission with this project, is just to tell stories about the community and about individuals. And we felt that year after year, if it became a gimmick, it would become less about the stories. And not only that, it was inspiring people around the world to tell their own stories. And we found that that I know of 29 different countries where people were doing 30 mosques in 30 days in their cities. Like we found Indonesia, South Africa, China, India, Egypt, Germany, the UK, DC, Chicago, New York, LA.
So you really started a movement.
Exactly.
Basically.
And so we wanted a way to celebrate that. And so this year, if you go to our website, we're getting people all around the world to share their experience. So anything you post on Twitter or on Instagram with the hashtag 30 days, it's going to show up on our site, because we noticed that people were already talking about Ramadan and sharing their experience, talking about the masjids, the mosque they were at, or the food they were eating, or the people that they're praying for, and the people that they miss, and just random reflections. And it we were telling them, well, you're already on Twitter, you're already on Instagram, go ahead and keep doing that, but just add the hashtag 30 days, and we'll be able to pull it. And so it's kind of created this virtual community where people are sharing their experience. And at the same time, people like the work that we put out, and so we're still going to be doing, cool things throughout the month as well. And so instead of doing a road trip, me and then 2 or 3 filmmaker friends of mine, Musa Saeed, he's an award-winning filmmaker, just had his film premiere at Sundance, Bassam Tarek, who I did the project with, and then Omar Malik, who's a photographer for National Geographic. The 4 of us are each putting out films throughout the month, and we're each directing a film, and we're just having a lot of fun with it. And so being at home and kind of staying anchored for the month gives us an opportunity to really push the envelope and really take some risks with stuff. And so we put out our first film this week, this whole dilemma of should Muslims be allowed to go see the movie The Dark Knight. For all these nerds that want to see the movie, but, it comes out during the month of Ramadan, there's a conflict for some people. Like, is this Islamic? Is this un-Islamic? Is it a big deal? Is it not a big deal?
Right.
Is it just a movie? Is it the best use of our time? And so the film, Musa Saeed directed it, and I'm the star of it.
I actually saw that last night, and I want to thank you for keeping my kids up for another 20 minutes, especially my son, who decided to go put on his Batman garb and jump down the stairs at 2 in the morning.
Yeah, I saw that as well, man. It was great. When I first saw it, was like the first night of Ramadan, and this is night as in Knight. I was like, what is this? And I'm seeing this Batman. I'm like, this Batman looks like a knockoff that you would take pictures with in New York or something. And but as it went on, it was really good. It was definitely creative. It got the message across, and it was definitely entertaining.
How much did that suit cost you?
The suit, I think it was like $80 at some costume store. There's no return policy. I was so mad.
I was like, wow. I was wondering whether that was a suit or whether you really had like that 14-pack that you were.
Wow.
I can only wish. But the reason why we want to explore this issue was there was a lot of conversation, but I was getting really frustrated. People are like, haram, haram, haram. I'm like, dude, you're not a nerd. This movie, Batman, means nothing to you. Like, you don't know what it feels like to be really excited about a movie. Like, this is a genuine conflict. People are like, oh, don't worry about it. Just fast and just pray, and you'll not want to see it. I'm like, you don't know what this means.
So for people like you, this was a real dilemma. Because I thought it was just funny.
No, there's people that are really torn.
That's legitimate.
They need to see this movie. And I told the imam that I was talking to, I was like, dude, if I don't see this movie, I feel like if I'm not in the audience rooting Batman on, I feel like I'm letting him down. That's what this film means to me. And I don't think people understood that. And so it was really refreshing to meet an imam who's also a nerd and was just talking from that perspective.
Wow, our producer is shaking his head too. So maybe you guys need to exchange numbers and go on a mandate to talk about. Did you see it, Josh?
Of course, I saw that movie.
Okay, so did you see it, Aman? Have you seen it or no?
I have not seen it.
Well, there you go. We just made a love connection. All right, around Batman.
Oh my God!
It was funny because I was telling the director before the movie. He's like, "Are you going to see this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going to see this movie. I'm just acting this film. I don't care about this." But I saw this imam, and he just opened up my eyes to things. He was just like, "Look, Islamically and morally, no, there's nothing wrong with seeing a movie. How can it be Islam okay to see it outside the month, but during the month it's wrong?" He's like, "It's not wrong, but it's not the wisest use of our time." And because I was like, I feel like I'm letting Batman down, and I was like, well, when we die, not to get too religious, but when you die, and
bring it on, man, bring it on. It's Muslim.
When you die on the day of judgment, is Batman going to be supporting you? Is he going to be rooting you on and supporting your character? I was like, no, it's not true. He's like, and he was just making me think about, the effort of waiting at midnight and getting really excited and lined up and dressed up to show love for a movie. Do we have that same love towards other things in life? And so it just made me really think about and put things into perspective. Would we get up in the middle of the night for our friends and family that are in need and help them out and show love and that kind of thing?